Hello and welcome to WePC Benchmarks. My name is Seb, and today I finally managed to avoid the queues in the morning and have benchmarked New World with a selection of AMD GPUs. And they kind of run into the same problem as the Nvidia ones, and never really get above 80 to 85 FPS, with the cards not running at 100% utilization. But we'll still take a look at how they perform. And again, the testing was done at very high settings at 3 different resolutions. Starting off with the 6900 XT, and at 1080p it averages 75 FPS, with a 1% of 41 and a 0.1% of 28. Moving up to 1440p, and it averages 69 FPS, with a 1% of 36 and a 0.1% of 28. And then at 4K it averages at 68 FPS, with a 1% of 44 and a 0.1% of 37. Next up is the 6800 XT, and it averages 72 FPS, with a 1% of 40 and a 0.1% of 31. Then, at 1440p, it averages 75 FPS, with a 1% of 45 and a 0.1% of 41. And at 4K, it averages 64 FPS, with a 1% of 15 and a 0.1% of 12. The next GPU is the 6600 XT, and at 1080p, it averages 83 FPS, with a 1% of 20 and a 0.1% of 12. Up to 1440p, and it averages 62 FPS, with a 1% of 30 and a 0.1% of 18. And then at 4K, the card averages 31 FPS, with a 1% of 27 and a 0.1% of 21. Next is the 5700 XT, and at 1080p it averages 80 FPS, with a 1% of 52 and a 0.1% of 36. Then at 1440p it averages 54 FPS, with a 1% of 34 and a 0.1% of 31. And at 4K it averages 31 FPS, with a 1% of 28 and a 0.1% of 22. And lastly we have the RX 580, which at 1080p averages 43 FPS, with a 1% of 29 and a 0.1% of 28. Then at 1440p it averages 30 FPS, with a 1% of 24 and a 0.1% of 21. And then at 4K it averages 16 FPS, with a 1% of 14 and a 0.1% of 14 as well. So there you have it, New World benchmark with 5 AMD GPUs. The same utilization problems happening with these, but to a slightly lesser extent. But with an MMO, I suppose you wouldn't really need more than 60, but running at your refresh rate would be good, which ours is at 60 to be fair. If this is the case, it might even be worth turning on the FPS cap, to hopefully help with some of the stuttering. I will be working on an optimization guide for the game, to hopefully help out with some of these issues as well. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.